Race 8 at Yonkers Raceway on Monday night is the feature, the $514,000 MGM Borgata. It's the richest stakes race of the year so far, and I'm joined by Matt Rose to take a look at it. Really, 8 horses on the gate, and all of them can win.
Yeah, this is shaping up, at least on paper, as a great final, as it usually is. Years past when the series was obviously known as the Levy. Now it's the MGM Borgata Pacing Series final, and we're looking right now at the field of the 8 finalists. And yeah, I mean, legitimately, you can make a legitimate case for all 8 horses in this race. I mean, how it's not that often when you look at a field and say that, geez, I can't positively throw anybody out. I think that's the case here. Obviously, we got to narrow down a little bit or significantly, but yeah, this is shaping up to be a great final with some very interesting storylines. Mostly being the undefeated this year, Leonidas, who has unfortunately fortunately for their connections, drawn an outside post. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets involved when he really hasn't shown or have to be tested early on. So that's just one of the many interesting storylines here. But yeah, it is shaping up as a great final.
We'll start with the 2 morning line favorites, Western Joe and Backstreet Shadow. Those two met up last week. We're going to take a look at the victory by Backstreet Shadow last week in a video here. And what's interesting, you'll find, at least interesting to me, is how Western Joe just looks done on the turn. For whatever reason, he just doesn't like that final turn. But when he hits that straightaway, wow.
Yeah, I like Backstreet Shadow last week because I figured you'd have the tactical edge. And you look at Western Joe after tucking early and grinding, and you think he's all done, and you're looking at Johnny Gingras picked up the catch drive in Backstreet Shadow. And then all of a sudden, Western Joe finds another gear, and it's just flying coming to the wire. And that's a couple of 2 or 3 times in this series that we've seen that from this horse, where he looks to be struggling a little bit or looks to be out of it, had no chance, and just finds another gear or a second wind, so to speak, and they hit the straightaway in the stretch, and he comes flying. I mean, he's had some strange trips in this series, without a doubt. And you know what? Before the draw came out, I was pretty confident. I knew I really liked Western Joe coming into this final. Thought to myself, all right, as long as he doesn't get post 7 or post 8, I'm going to strongly be considering him on top. Obviously, we have to see, where the other horses landed after the post draw, but I think post 5 is perfect for Western Joe, and I don't see jumping. I don't see jumping ship right now. I just think he might be even stronger or peaking, even better right now coming into this final, especially from post 5 now.
I think Western Joe is probably the horse to beat. He was made the morning line favorite. My concern is what kind of trip he's going to get. If you told me that Dexter Dunn was going to gun to the front with Western Joe, I'd put all my money on him right now because I think he's the best horse and he'll be in the right spot. But if he's going to try to come from off the pace, who knows how far back he's going to be. He doesn't like that final turn. I just have no confidence in this horse from off the pace winning this race.
I don't know. I mean, you saw the race 2 or 3 back in one of the preliminaries where he was just completely hopeless, and somehow he found a seam up the rail and came flying. And another race where he kicked into gear and he flew home to sweep by, not only win but win going away. And then we saw last week where you think he's all done, and he's tailing off after the second move, and for whatever reason, once they straighten out, he realizes, okay, it's time to race again. You know what? I'm not certain about the trip here either, but I just think he's so sharp that if he's in any reasonable spot turning for home, no matter how hard he's been used, unless it's just something, ridiculous, that he's going to have that added gear in the stretch, and he's going to be able to power by. Will he be on the lead? Will Dexter Dunn be able to fire him out? He's got to try to be forwardly placed. To be honest with you, I don't know who's going to be cutting this mile. That's what makes it so interesting, because you have 2 of the 3 Burke horses outside in Backstreet Shadow from the 6, and this is the plan from the 8. One of them's got to be blasted off the gate, you think. So, I mean, could he grind uncovered and keep coming, Western Joe? Yes. Could he be second over and sweep off cover? Yes. No matter how you look at it, I just like him. And I can't wait to play him, to be honest with you.
There's only one perfect horse in this series, and that's Leonidas. We're going to take a look at his win last week, and it was impressive as usual, but as usual, he really didn't have any challengers.
You know what? It's hard to knock this horse. He's been just absolutely incredible. But yeah, he's had kind of like cakewalks in all four of the preliminaries that he's been in. I mean, last week he had the rail spot. It was a 6-horse field, and the gate opened, and nobody left the gate. And I want to believe that Austin Siegel was probably surprised when he looked over his right. He's like, nobody's coming. And he had a couple other races where he's able to get to the front easy and rate. Now he's got the 7-hole, and he hasn't proven that he can leave off the gate. And I mean, I think there's a legitimate possibility that he's going to get away last year, especially if Giwner, who's outside of him, this is the plan, who can leave the gate, obviously, tries to leave and, can cross over maybe to get position in front of a couple other horses. I think that leaves Leonidas last in this race. And unfortunately, it obviously severely compromises his chances. And, as a result, he's going to end up most likely not being on my ticket.
The most disappointing thing for me at the draw was This Is the Plan during post 8. This was a horse that I was looking at coming in the final as my pick, and it's just almost impossible to pick him from out there. I think he can leave and take a tough trip and still hang around, but I don't think he can win from out there.
Well, you know what? If you're looking for a price, you're looking for value. I mean, you're going to get potentially double digits on the horse. Maybe this is the time to take a big swing. I mean, the other option is he draws one of the inside posts. He's one of the favorites, and maybe you're reluctantly picking him, but looking to play somebody else looking for some value. But unfortunately, he drew the 8-hole, and the trip is obviously uncertain. But he's shown versatility. I mean, he can leave the gate and cut a mile. We saw last week when he didn't leave, but he finished strongly. In a fast back half, having no chance. He only got beat, a length or so. So, obviously the trip is uncertain, but I do like his chances here. I do think Yannick is going to have him in a good enough spot where he can make some noise late, and I am going to use him in the second spot under Western Joe, looking for that value, so to speak.
Before I get to the horse I picked on top, just to touch on each of them to give them all their due. Rocket Papello obviously has tons of speed. He's certainly a contender. Mock and Cheese won a preliminary last week, though, it was probably a weaker division. Lion Steel has been right there week after week. Backstreet Shadow, he's a 47 pacer who, really hasn't done anything wrong in this series. 2 wins, 2 seconds, 4 starts. There's any of these horses can win.
That's like when I said in the opening, I said, how often do you have a race where you can't automatically just, toss 2 or maybe 3 horses and say, okay, they're just hopeless or whatever. I mean, you can make a legitimate case for every single one of these horses. And realistically, when the final odds close, there shouldn't be a horse higher than 15-1 in this race or something like that, which really is amazing. But obviously, you had touched on in the past about separating these horses into certain tiers or levels, so to speak. What's your top 3? What's your second 3, and what's your bottom 2 here?
I think Western Joe, Backstreet Shadow. I would even put He's the Kingslayer because of the post into the top tier, and then the second tier, Rockapello, Leonidas. I don't know if I could put This Is the Plan in there only because of the post position. And then the bottom tier is Mock and Cheese and Lion Steel. For me, my pick, I went to number 2. He's a Kingslayer. And I went here for a few reasons. One, I felt like he's a horse that's proven to me in this series that he can fight with them and still keep going. He can take some air and it doesn't seem to bother him. The second reason why I like him is I really think that there's going to be some outside speed here with Backstreet Shadow, and This Is the Plan. And we talk about the outside speed and how it's going to set up for a closer, and it never does at Yonkers. Here, I'm thinking a little bit differently. I'm thinking he can just push away a little bit, come away close, maybe even sit third. Maybe some of that outside speed, who's been parked a long way, gives way, and he could slip out and really charge home. I just think he's a horse that's definitely going to be overlooked in this race as far as the wagering board. I think a lot of the money's going to go on Western Joe, Backstreet Shadow, maybe Leonidas. And I think we're going to get 6-1 on a horse that's won 3 out of 4 preliminary legs.
Yeah, it's funny. This horse, I mean, there was one week where I think he went off odds on and he just completely tripped out to win. But yeah, I mean, he is kind of the horse that gets no respect, and he has offered decent prices throughout the series. And I do agree with you that he is going to get a little bit overlooked here. And you know what? He doesn't deserve to get overlooked. That's absolutely for sure. And yeah, you will get an okay price on him. I mean, we saw in the clip last week, he was uncovered from 5th in a very fast last half after Leonidas just cruised, and he was right there coming to the wire. He got outfinished, but, still that was a rugged trip. And he hasn't shown a ton of early foot. I don't think there's any way he's stepping over Rockapello, the rail horse, but does that leave him first over? Who knows? Or does it leave him maybe buried if an outer flow kind of develops early and he has to get flushed out? I'm not exactly sure where that's going to leave him, but certainly he deserves. He's not an afterthought in this series, in this race. That's for sure. And as you can see, I do have him on the bottom of my tickets, and I just, like I touched on before, it's kind of a shame that I don't even consider Leonidas like a major contender in this race. Considering how his perfect record and how effortlessly he's won all these preliminaries, but that's what makes the open draw, I guess, kind of interesting, fair or unfair depending on how you look at it. But like we touched on, it's a great race shaping up, and I may very well be all in with Western Joe.
Well, the $514,000 Borgata, Matt's going Western Joe. I'm going He's a Kingslayer. And who do you like? I hope you have the winner. Good luck.